Hello, and welcome back to US History and Elections. In this video, we're going to be doing a presidential election projection. And as you can see, I've filled in a presidential map with all the safe states, the states that are not going to go to either of the other respective parties. The states remaining, 214 electoral votes of states, are not toss-ups, but they are competitive states. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the 538 polling averages. Now, 538 does not have polling averages for every single state. In that case, I have used RCP polling. Now, I'm not a massive fan of RCP polling averages. They tend to favour more partisan polls over more more independent polling in their averages, and for that reason, it skews for both Democratic and Republican ways. But for the most part, I'm going to be using 538 polling. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to go through Dem likely, GOP likely. That's 5 to 15 point lead. Dem lean, GOP lean, 2 to 5 point lead. And then Dem and GOP tilt states. That's anywhere from a 0 to a 2 point lead. And then we're going to be filling in the state map, and whichever candidate at the moment has the polling average lead in the states overall will be analysis of that at the end. Now, as you can see, this starts off with Harris at 193 electoral votes and Donald Trump at 131 electoral votes. But a lot of these states are going to be characterized into the Dem likely column. First of all, this is New Mexico, currently has a lead of 6.5 points. New Hampshire currently has a lead of 6.5 points as well. And so does Minnesota, 6.5 points. And as well as this, Nebraska's second district, there's not much polling at the moment, but the polling that has come out has Nebraska's second at an 8 point advantage at the moment. Like I said, not many polling with Harris as the candidate in that area, but at the moment, that is why. Now, these four states are pretty much going to go to the Democrats no matter what happens. Even if Trump does very well, it would be very, very hard for him to make inroads into these states, especially Minnesota. That was possibly on his competitive map, his target map, but Tim Walz has shored up that state for sure. Now we're going to be going on to the Trump likely states, and at the moment that is Texas with a plus 8.5 lean to the GOP, as well as Ohio with a plus 9.5 lean to the GOP. These are a lot more stronger to the GOP than the Democratic likely states are. But as I said, 5 to 15 points is the polling average range that we are putting likely states into. Again, with the Democratic states, Ohio has been shored up almost certainly with the J.D. Vance pick, even though he is not the most popular choice in Ohio. But that is beside the point. He is still a home state advantage in Ohio, and alongside with Texas, they're not really competitive for the Democrats this cycle. Now we're going to be going on to the Dem leans. Now this is where it gets a bit more interesting. Biden, about 4 weeks ago now, almost a month to the date, was actually down in pretty much all of these states polling wise, other than Virginia, which is going to be categorized. But at the moment, they are holding a narrow Dem lead. Michigan currently has a +3 lead. Virginia currently a +4 lead. I want to talk about that one. And Wisconsin currently has a +3.5 lead, which is the largest out of the key battleground states in this election. Now, Michigan always is the most democratic state in the Midwest, especially in 2016 when that went to Donald Trump. It was a big shock, more of a shock than Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. But it currently has a strong lead of +3 for Harris. There's been a lot of polling out that state as well. Now, Wisconsin, I always say, is a outlier in the polling. In 2020, there was huge Biden lead in the polls there. We're talking about 6 or 7 points. And on election day, Biden won it by less than a point. So realistically, Wisconsin polling is always all over the place. I wouldn't really look at it too much, but I would say it is historically a lean Democrat state at the moment, but it could be a tilt, and the Republicans do still have a chance to win the state as well, even if the polling is not positive for them at the moment. Now, Virginia is the interesting one. Harris has been doing better in polling compared to Biden. But there's still some shaky polling. There was a poll that came out today. This was not a Republican or Democrat commission poll. It was just a normal Roanoke College poll, which is typically in the state of Virginia is one of the more respectable ones, and had a +3 lean for Harris, which is within the margin of error for a Trump win. Of course, it's also in the margin of error of a Harris +7 win, but we're always going to look at the negative side, are we not? Now, of course, Hillary won this state alongside Biden, and they both won it fairly comfortably. Hillary picked Tim Kaine, who is the incumbent senator. He's actually running for election. He's running for re-election this year. But I think Virginia is a state to keep an eye on. I think the entire South as a whole has been a bit shaky for the Democrats. Of course, it was a narrow win for them in Georgia back in 2020, and I think they can't take Virginia for granted. The polling shows this as well. Now we're going to be going over to the GOP leans. There's only 2 states/districts I want to put in this. Of course, Maine second. This is definitely a GOP lean, currently a +4 in favor of Trump, and Florida, which currently has a +4.3 lean in favor of Trump. Now, Florida's been seen a lot more as a likely state this election cycle, and I'm still happy to put it in a likely state. But according to the polling averages, Harris has actually cut into Donald Trump's lead recently. She's not leading in any polls. She's not even that close. She's just outside or just into the margin of error in a few polling results over the last week or two. But that's enough to swing the average back towards a lean categorization for the Republicans in Florida. Like I said, I don't think the Republicans really have to worry that much in Florida. But of course, Florida is 30 electoral votes. The Republicans need this in any path to victory that they could possibly think of. Now, Maine second, of course, Trump won this back in 2016 and in 2020, despite the polling showing that he was struggling in it in 2020. In the end, it was a fairly comfortable win for him in Maine second, and I would likely see that he does this again, but I think with a much more reduced lead this time. Of course, Jared Golden is the Democratic incumbent congressman for the district, and actually, as Nebraska's second, currently has a Republican incumbent, I believe it is Don Bacon. So it's interesting, the two. Maine second votes Republican on the presidential level, but as a Democratic incumbent congressman, and Nebraska is the opposite, votes Democrat at the presidential level like it did in 2020, and then votes for a Republican congressman. Interesting. But I'm going to be moving on to the final 5 states, and I think these are the most competitive states in the election, also add in Wisconsin, and these are the states that really are going to be deciding the election. Now, at the moment, this is the 538 polling average. This could very much change because they're all within the tilt margin. That's between 2 points and a 0-point advantage for each respective candidate. Now, for the Democrats, they currently have a 1.4 polling average lead in Pennsylvania, a 0.9 polling average lead in Arizona, and a 0.2 polling average lead in Nevada. Now, Pennsylvania has been pretty much circled out as the tipping point state. There's been a lot of coverage into specific counties, specific areas, percentages, leads that we need to be watching out for in early voting and polling day results coming in. Pennsylvania is going to be an important election, an important state, no matter what path to victory either candidate tries to go for. But at the moment, there's been more positive polling since Harris took over on the ticket, and that has put Pennsylvania back in the Democratic column. A 1.4 lead, which is stronger than the other tilt states that we have in the Southwest, but still a very narrow lead and well within the margin of error. Now, Arizona and Nevada, I think Arizona is a better chance for the Democrats to win in that state. I think the Senate race is going to help them there. And you could say the Senate race in Nevada is going to help. The Senate polling in Nevada seems a lot more in favor of the incumbent Jackie Rosen than it does in Arizona. Of course, Arizona is an open Senate race. Kirsten Sinema is retiring. But the polling shows it's dead, neck and neck in both these states. Arizona's only a 0.9, and that has only flipped very recently. Before, Trump had a fairly commanding lead in the state, and Nevada, Trump had an even bigger lead in the state, and that's why it's only a 0.2 at the moment. It's only been a few polls in the last couple of weeks that have started to minimize the advantage that the Republicans had, and then literally in the last few days or the last week, it has flipped over to the Democratic column. But like I said, literally one poll that shows Trump leading up by 2 or 3 points in the state could then flip it back in favor of the Republicans for both these states. So 2 to keep an eye out for. But at the moment, this currently puts Harris over the edge, 287. Specifically, Pennsylvania puts her over the edge in this scenario. But like I said, we're going to be filling in the final 2 states, and this is North Carolina, a current tilt of 0.3 points. I'm going to talk about that, and Georgia, a 1.2 tilt. Now, Georgia, of course, the narrowest state, I believe it was 13,000 votes in the end that Biden won the state back in 2020. And it's going to be a very, very hard one for the Democrats to defend if they want to defend it in this 2024 map. I think Georgia is the state that they are most expecting to lose if they were to lose a state. Now, North Carolina, on the other hand, is their top target. They've always been eyeing up North Carolina. 2016, they targeted it, didn't win it, came close. 2020, the exact same, came close, targeted, didn't win it. Now, North Carolina, the polling in the last few days has been very positive. I believe the New York Times Siena poll has boosted Harris's chances in this state by a lot. I believe the polling had her up by 2 or 3 points. It was a fairly commanding lead compared to a lot of the other previous polling in this state, which still had Trump at an advantage even against Harris as his challenger. Now, North Carolina, it's pretty much a lean Republican state, in my opinion, just considering the previous history, the demographics in the state, and even with the polling, it shows that it's still going to be a close race. I think the Republicans are probably going to edge out on top, like it does say in the polling at the moment. Georgia, on the other hand, I do think the Republicans still have an advantage here, and I don't think Harris's campaign should look at this as the primary path to victory. I think the Southwest is a lot better of a path to victory for the Harris campaign if they want to. But the Republicans, Donald Trump's path to victory has to go through winning both North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Texas, but particularly winning back Georgia and holding on to North Carolina. So at the moment, with the polling averages from 538, this gives Harris 287 electoral votes, and importantly Pennsylvania, and this would give her the win. Just to show what happens if Trump was leading Pennsylvania, there you go, he wins by getting exactly 270. But at the moment, the polling data shows that Harris is leading barely in Pennsylvania. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more content like this, remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you all again very soon.